Welcome to Financial Issues with Shana Burt, where we join reality with truth, helping you to make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now, here's your host, Shana Burt.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. It is Rapid Fire Friday, May 31st, 2024. I'll tell you now, our phone lines are open, so if you've got some questions, go ahead and get in the call queue. It's 610-363-1110. We're going to get right to it this morning. Our stewardship verse of the day, 1 Corinthians 9:6. The point is, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. We'll get deeper into that later in the show today, but for now, we're going to get to some current financial issues, because at Financial Issues, we help you to stay in the know about the financial issues of the day. We help keep you abreast of what's happening in the economy and the markets, and help you understand how that impacts your own personal financial issues. So, a good bit of data came out this week. The Fed gave their Beige Book report of 12 districts for the 6 weeks ending May 20th. I'm going to go over a few of the things that were found in that report as they surveyed all of the 12 districts around the country. Most of the districts reported slight or modest growth, while 2 noted no change in activity. That was one thing that came directly out of the report. So not only is the ideological divide widening amongst Americans, so is the level of financial prosperity. That was me, not the Fed's Beige Book. Now, this is from the Fed's Beige Book, what they said about retail spending. Retail spending was flat to up slightly, reflecting lower discretionary spending and heightened price sensitivity among consumers. That was the Fed, now me. This is the Fed continuing. The high cost of borrowing resulted in this. Auto sales were roughly flat, with few districts noting that manufacturers were offering incentives to spur sales. They also said that travel and tourism strengthened for most of the country, but there was a here's that word again, mixed sentiment about the summer. Here's what the Fed's Beige Book said about the struggling manufacturing sector. Manufacturing activity was widely characterized as flat to up, though 2 districts cited declines. And about banking, tight credit standards and high interest rates continue to constrain lending growth. So this is me. That's what the rate increases are designed to do, to put the brakes on the growth in the economy. Seems to be working fairly well. Here's the Fed's impression of commercial real estate, the commercial real estate market. They said conditions in commercial real estate sector softened amid supply concerns, tight credit conditions, and elevated borrowing costs. To sum it up, the Fed's Beige Book said overall outlooks grew somewhat more pessimistic amid reports of rising uncertainty and greater downside risk. So, what about inflation? What did the Beige Book have to say about inflation? More talk of price pressures and consumer pushback, forcing some businesses to eat increased costs. This will manifest in compressed margins in the future earnings season if inflation doesn't ease more. So what happens if it costs companies more to produce their good or service and the consumer won't accept those increases? The companies have to eat them. What if the company eats them? If they have same revenues and higher costs, their profit margins shrink. What happens if profit margins shrink? Their share prices go down. And about the labor market, hiring slowed and difficulty lingers in filling some skilled positions. Same things that we've been gleaning from the unemployment reports that come out weekly. And finally, the apolitical Fed makes reference to politics. But just to repeat what businesses are echoing, some businesses, they reported, were expected to cut back on spending or postpone their plans until after the outcome of the election is known. So what does that mean for the Fed? Well, there's still a very, very low chance that the Fed will implement their rate cuts starting in July. But make no mistake about it, in my opinion, the Fed may lead from behind, but we won't fall behind Europe. The ECB has widely telegraphed that they are going to cut rates in a few weeks without waiting for more data to confirm that inflation is staying down. They seem content right now to see that just that inflation has trended down, where the Fed says that they need to see data that it's going to stay down. I did put up a note in commentary earlier this week about what could be an unwelcome surprise in next week's job release. So if you're a partner, make sure that you check in and read that short comment. There was a revision to first quarter GDP. The 1.3% print was revised down from 1.6, but that was expected. I think we've got a chart to put up there and show you what GDP quarter by quarter has looked like over the last couple of years there. So we can see going back to 2021, we've got those two negative quarters of GDP there in 2022, and then we saw it rebound and then trend downwards, pop up again in the third quarter of last year, and then look at that drop off there. So we are moving in, depends on how you look at it, the wrong direction for a prosperous economy, because a prosperous economy sees good growth. But this is just what the Fed is needing to see to have proof that their rate cuts are putting the brakes on the economy. This is the lowest growth since the contractions in the first half of 2022, which we do see up there on the chart as two negative quarters of GDP. That's less than half the pace of growth experienced in the fourth quarter of 2023. You can see that on the chart there. So they're saying that this revision is mainly due to a downward revision in consumer spending. Remember, we have a consumer-driven economy. 70% of our economy is based on consumer spending. Consumer spending slowed more than initially anticipated, 2% versus 2.5% in the first estimate that we saw out, due to consumption of both goods and services. So that is information from the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis. Bottom line, the economy is slowing and labor market is cooling. Initial jobless claims came in this morning, 219,000 from 216, and that was above the 2,000 above the estimate. The 4-week moving average continues to tick up from 220 to 223. This is the highest since September of 2023. Continuing claims, 1.791 million, still hanging right below that 1.8 critical level, but about as forecasted. This data continues to confirm that the pace of hirings has slowed and demand for labor has moderated. Unemployment is still historically low, and you'll hear the Biden administration taking victory laps at that. But a higher unemployment rate is in the makings, I do believe. Core PCE number did come out this morning. Not a whole lot of surprises there. This is the Fed's preferred gauge to measure inflation. It rose by 0.2% from the previous month after a 0.3% increase in March. So the markets did respond positively. But the bottom line is, though inflation is the pace of inflation is starting to slow, we're still more than 20% higher in prices than we were just 3 years ago. Have a little bit more data to get to, but you'll have to stay tuned to get to that because we're going to have to take a break. Now that you're in the know about the recent and upcoming financial issues, we hope that you'll learn more about how we can help you integrate that into your own investment strategy and honor God in the way that you invest. Find out more about how we help you defund darkness at financialissues.org.
Throughout the month of May, FISM is partnering with Preborn to fund the light by providing 100 ultrasound machines to pro-life centers around the country. Now, how can you contribute? Well, for as little as $28, you can provide an ultrasound scan to an abortion-minded woman in crisis. And when that woman hears the heartbeat of her baby, she will choose life. Get this, 90% of the time. It's remarkable. And guess what? With the help of a donor match, for every 200 scans donated, that's for a net value of $5,600, Preborn Ministries will be gifted an ultrasound machine to place at a clinic in need. Each machine has the potential to impact hundreds of thousands of mothers' choices. Preborn also offers additional support to mothers in need and presents the gospel to every mother who comes into their clinics, knowing that salvation is the greatest gift that can be given to a mother and her child. So go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, folks. Rapid Fire Friday. Shana's on as well here. Good to see you all this morning, May 31st. Hey, Shana, I wanted to ask if you had heard of this headline. We've been hearing a lot about what the Democrats have been doing this week because they've been trying to jail their chief political opponent. But while they're not busy doing that, they also rolled out $100 million to try to win back the House on abortion rights. So I saw this headline. Democrat House Majority PAC on Wednesday of this week unveiled a plan called the Reproductive Freedom Accountability Fund. It's essentially to win back control of the House for the efforts of institutionalizing abortion or reinstitutionalizing it again. So it's a $100 million investment. It will be used in part to push abortion as a winning message for the Dems, and this is ahead of the 2024 election, promoting abortion with voter turnout efforts, efforts to ensure the success of pro-abortion ballot measures, yada, yada, yada. The memo also reflects Democrats' latest strategy of false assertions that Republicans not only oppose abortion, but also in vitro fertilization and contraception. Shana, it's pretty clear to me that they don't just want to make abortion okay, but they want to force abortion as the top option for any woman who has the choice to either abort or keep their child. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. And force taxpayers to pay for it.
Exactly. That's really just ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. This is just more evidence that our society is becoming more and more polarized, and Democrats are investing money into making that happen. All I have to say is thank goodness we have ministries like Preborn Ministries, who is really a champion in pushing back against the darkness of abortion. Preborn is a ministry that has grown by leaps and bounds. They put ultrasound machines in crisis pregnancy clinics around the United States. And that's because when a woman finds herself in a crisis pregnancy, she's really seeking help. You know, she may consider the option of aborting the baby because she's been told by so many in this country that having that baby will ruin her life and that she will not be able to achieve her life's dreams if she's burdened by a baby. But Preborn's there to tell the truth, to show her the baby on the ultrasound, to let her hear the heartbeat of the life that is growing inside of her, and to encourage her, to help her, give her some very practical help to help her choose life for her baby and to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ so that she may choose eternal life for herself. And today's our last day
Yes.
of the preborn campaign. Where are we?
Yeah, we're doing great. You guys have just blown this out of the water. It's awesome. So we're over $315,000 as of this point. We've blown through that 50 ultrasound machine goal. I think we're up over 56 ultrasound machines underwritten now. So obviously, you all know we had the possibility to hit 100 ultrasound machines. So if there's someone out there, if you haven't given yet, and maybe you have a large amount or a small amount, and you want to underwrite one of these machines and give a $5,600 gift or something larger than that, today's the day to do it. You still have about, well, how many hours do we have left in the day? Like 15 hours left to be able to do that, to catch this campaign. And once again here, Shana, we've talked about how this is really a triple gift. It's a financial gift to preborn. It's a gift that helps them underwrite an ultrasound machine at a much cheaper cost so that they can put one of these machines, life-saving machines, in one of these preborn centers. And the total is a gift back to financial issues. So it really is a triple gift here. I would encourage anyone who hasn't given yet, please do so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we currently need $245,000 to reach the goal.
Yeah.
And we have a little something here. If you're on the fence about giving to preborn, we have a video for you to watch to push you off the fence and help us to reach that goal. Watch this.
My journey with preborn is actually a beautiful story. Everything started back when, I was 21 years old and my period wasn't coming. I had a boyfriend at the time who is now my husband, but at the time, my boyfriend. I just noticed that my period wasn't coming. I talked to my mom and I told her, hey, Mom, my period is not coming. Mind you, I come from a Christian household. My husband does too. So my mom told me, okay, I'm going to take the test with you. We're going to go by it together. Yeah. And if it's positive, we're going to celebrate because we celebrate life. But if it's negative, you're grounded for the rest of your life. And of course, it was understandable. So we went ahead and bought the test together. And when we were about to open our eyes to see the result, my mom starts praying, but I can't even remember what she was praying about because I was so nervous. I think, the enemy started to put all these thoughts in my mind of, fear, anxiety, depression. I remember I was shaking. I started thinking of myself, right? And we tend to do that sometimes. I was just thinking of me. I started thinking, my life is over. Everything that I want or I'm leaving right now, it's going to be completely over if this is positive. And then I opened my eyes and it was positive. So as you might imagine, I just closed the doors of my room and I stayed there very depressed for 3 days. I told my mom that I was not going to continue the pregnancy, even though my whole life I have been pro-life and I would never support abortion. I found myself in a place where I thought, this is just going to be the solution for me. I'd just Google abortion near me. And the first phone number that popped up in Google, I just decided to call. When I called, I received a beautiful, welcoming voice and very nice and gentle person. The Holy Spirit started to do that work within me and within my heart of opening up and receiving that grace that the Lord had given me during that time. And not only that, but I was able to hear, the heartbeat and see the baby, which that was the moment when I knew that I just needed to continue and that God was going to give me the strength to, continue and just do it. And that I was called to be the mom of that baby and that I was going to do it great because God had assigned that to me. There's amazing days in motherhood days. There's hard days, but there hasn't been one day where I would think, oh my gosh, I would do anything different. I love my baby. Every single thing that she does brings so much joy to my life. And God has done so much more than what we thought. When I say, oh my gosh, my life is going to be over, it was the complete opposite. God actually turned everything around. And right now I'm living so much more than what I could ever dreamed of.
Amazing.
Yeah, incredible. It's awesome.
I hope that touched you all as much as it did me. We have a local pregnancy clinic that I follow around here and give to as well. And they received a preborn ultrasound machine that they have in a mobile bus that they bring around. And they give us updates all the time. They send out alerts every time someone accepts Jesus. And so it gives everybody an opportunity to rejoice. And I would just encourage you to be a part of this work. It's such a great work that Preborn does. And like I said, we only need $245,000.
Not much, right?
Not much. So do your best today. We hope that you will help us. And, you know, it also helps financial issues because we get a matching gift on that too. And that increases the reach of our megaphone here and continues to help Preborn reach a lot of people because, you know, this really is a financial issue, right?
Yeah.
Democrats are spending $100 million.
Yeah.
So it is a financial issue, and we hope that you will be a part of that today.
Absolutely. You know, Shana, it brings to mind also, I remember Dan used to say whenever we would do these campaigns, it's not about the kingdom of financial issues, not about the kingdom of Preborn, it's about the kingdom of God. And you know, Preborn, I mean, we love them dearly. They're our friends. This ultimately isn't really about even raising money for either of our ministries. It's about pushing back against darkness and glorifying the name of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and you hear how powerful from her testimony. You hear how powerful the voices of darkness are.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's the voices are so subtle sometimes, but they come in the form of, "What about you?" Right. You know, what if you do this? It's going to ruin your life. You know, think of all of the great things that you could do, even for God. Think of all the great things that you could do if you weren't tied down with a baby and, you know, all of those things. So we hope that you will fund the light, to be a joyful and generous giver, to, as we know Dan's doing right now, celebrating in glory with all of the babies that he was able to help save. Well, one day he will, I guess, whenever they get to glory. All of the babies that he saved and the mothers' lives that were changed through the gifts from Preborn. So we encourage you, be a joyful and generous giver. And whether it's a little or a lot, you know, God sees the heart and the intent behind it. So do that today. Financialissues.org. Click on the Preborn banner. And if you are one of those who may be sending a larger gift, shoot Pat an email and just let her know that that's coming so that we can give Preborn a heads up and make sure that gets counted as part of the campaign. Yeah, it's awesome. Hey, Shana, I think we have time for a question or two if you want to get to that before the end of the segment. All right, let's do it. Patty is asking about CS43. CS43 recently taken off the buy list. They've missed paying a dividend for 2 quarters. Should the investment into 65 retirement and investment income 75 and up portfolios sell this due to loss of dividend income? Patty's 69. What do you think, Shana? Should they? That particular company is still a hold, Patty. I would double check that information. I didn't see information to confirm that they missed dividends. I see that they did pay dividend in March of this year and December of last year. Awesome. Next one we have, Shana, is Betty. Betty is asking about E47 in a non-qualified account. So when I sell the company that bought out E47, will my cost basis be what I paid for that company or the price of the company that bought it out? Also, I'm wondering if I will have to pay long-term or short-term capital gains tax. I had bought E47 over a year ago, and I'm 74. What do you think? Yes, so the company that did buy out E47 is ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil is not a biblically responsible company. The ticker symbol is XOM. So if you owned E47, which is an energy company that has been on our buy list in the past, was a great company. It has now been acquired by ExxonMobil. So instead of your shares of, and we can say it since it's not around anymore, but sure. Pioneer, which was PXD. If you owned that one, you now owned XOM, which is ExxonMobil, and ExxonMobil's not biblically responsible. So we did send out a sell alert for that. You're going to want to check your portfolio. If you have it, go ahead and get rid of that. Now, you will retain your original cost basis from your original purchase. So if you bought it over a year ago, then you should have a long-term cost basis, which makes you subject to capital gains taxes on the long-term side. So if you're in the 12% tax bracket, the good news is your capital gains rate is 0. So at the most, you're probably going to pay 15% on the gain there. Well, folks, we've got to take a break. If you're listening to the live show or the entire program. We'll be back with more. But for those of you listening to the short version of the show on maybe a CSN station, we encourage you to get the phone app and go back and listen to the full version later on. We will continue with Rapid Fire Friday after this break. Get your call queued up, 610-363-1110.
Here at FISM News, our mission is to provide you with news from a source you can trust.
The news is a constant reminder that this world is not our home. It is marred by sin, resulting in wars, brokenness, and divisiveness.
Jesus promised that he will return soon to judge sin and make all things new.
Until then, we place our hope in him.
This is the good news, the most important truth we feel compelled to share.
Many mothers find strength in the experience of giving birth as they overcome physical challenges and embrace the journey of bringing a new life into the world. You can help an abortion-minded mother receive discipleship, encouragement, and the strength needed to have her baby. During the month of May, you can bless your mom for Mother's Day by giving to Preborn on your mother's behalf. Go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that, but we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever he calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
We're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
The miracle of carrying a child creates a unique bond between a mother and her unborn baby. She feels the baby's movements and responds to their needs even before birth. Help create that bond between an abortion-minded mother and her unborn child by giving the gift of life through Preborn. During the month of May, you can bless your mom for Mother's Day by giving to Preborn on your mother's behalf. For $28, you can sponsor an ultrasound scan that will enable an abortion-minded woman to hear the heartbeat of her baby. 90% of the time, that sound will change a woman's mind and cause her to keep their baby. Give the gift of life to the woman that gave you life by sponsoring an ultrasound. Go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM. You can help an abortion-minded mother receive discipleship, encouragement, and the strength needed to have her baby.
Securities offered through GA Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of GA Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Today's Rapid Fire Friday, and we have no calls in the queue. So if you want to be the first caller, 610-363-1110 is the phone number. You can ask questions about your personal financial issues. You can ask questions about biblically responsible investing, and if you're a partner, if you have questions about the strategy, if you're stuck on a certain point, just give us a call. Now's your chance, 610-363-1110. Wanted to get back around to some of the other financial news that happened this week. Pending home sales, not surprisingly, fell 7.7% in April of 2024, with all four regions of the U.S. registering month-over-month and year-over-year declines. The chief economist for the National Association of Realtors said that rising interest rates throughout the month dampened home buying, even with more inventory in the market. He also added that interest rate cuts should lead to better conditions. Yes, I would agree that would be true if we do see interest rate cuts that likely aren't coming as much and as quickly as the market was expecting earlier this year. But lower mortgage rates would definitely help some, but they're going to have to come a lot lower to unlock those golden handcuffs that home buyers have with the 3, 4, or 5% mortgages, with the national average for 30-year mortgages sitting somewhere around 7%. Rates are going to have to come down a good bit more to unlock those golden handcuffs. But yes, maybe inventory has increased a little bit, but you still have major problems with inventory, and you have a whole lot more people in this country, thanks to our loose borders, that need housing. You have people that are growing up and getting married and moving out of their parents' homes, wanting to achieve the American dream of home ownership, and just finding it very difficult. Not only have interest rates gone up, but home prices are up a good bit too. Also, so part of the reason there is the golden handcuffs. Existing homeowners not willing to sell their properties because of their low mortgages, but you also have this phenomenon of hedge funds and investors that are buying up a good bit of inventory that comes on the market. Don't hold me to this stat. I'm going off of memory here, but a recent report that I read, I think, says that about 1 out of every 5 homes that comes onto the market is being snatched up by investors or hedge funds. And they're not worried about the 7% mortgage rates because they have cash. So that is a big competition to would-be first-time home buyers who are really finding it difficult in the current market to achieve the American dream of home ownership. And the hedge funds and these investors have so much cash because so much cash has been printed and dumped into our financial system over the past 3-4 years. So do you see how most of the financial problems in this country are really coming from government overspending? I hope that you do.
Yes.
We kind of beat that dead horse. We talk about it all the time. But in my opinion, most things that are inflation, young people not being able to buy homes, home prices going up, the bubble that they're starting to talk about in the real estate market, the commercial real estate market, all of these things can be traced back to way too much government spending. I didn't get a chance to talk about in the first segment earlier what's coming next week. Next week is the jobs reports. So all of those labor market reports that are going to come out starting midweek to the end of the week, the Fed could get what it's itching for. That's a valid apolitical reason to cut rates, to goose that, and that will goose the markets prior to the upcoming election and help Jay Powell potentially have a better shot at keeping his job if the current administration continues their reign. Well, I see that we might have a call coming in, but while we're waiting on that, let's get to the stewardship verse of the day. What do we have, Seth?
Yeah, we got 1 Corinthians 9:6 here, Shana. The point is this, Paul says, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. If you folks have read Dan's book, The Fear of Money, one of the chapters in there, he talks about this biblical law of reaping and sowing. And this is a law that applies to all different areas of life. It applies to raising kids, health, hard work. The effort that you put in the early stages will offer benefits in the later stages, depending on how much work you put in early on. Of course,
way you treat people.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
The secularists call that karma.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, we have a better understanding of that. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a biblical thing that God has established, Shannon. It really is just common sense. You know, I mean, the work that you put in, you'll reap the benefits of it later. And this especially applies for us with stewardship. I think it hits right on the nose. When you work to put your financial investments to work, that return that you get will be dependent on what you did early on. And so speaking of investing here, Shana, it brings up a question we got yesterday about the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. This was a question that came in from Tyler in your home state of Texas. He says, Shana, can you share with the audience the SEC change that started earlier this week on May 28th with the settlement for stocks now 1 day after the trade? What effect does this have on the timing for handling of cash for buys and sells?
Yeah, so a couple of things that you need to understand there. And the gist of this really is just that the SEC is welcoming itself into the 21st century, I guess, with all of the, the technology advancements and all of those things. But a couple of basic things. A transaction date is the day that you successfully execute a trade. So when you go into your brokerage account now, a long time ago, it used to be you called up your broker and told them that you wanted to buy or sell something, and they put the trade in for you. And prior to 2017, you had your trade date or transaction date plus 3 days, T plus 3, to get your money in to pay for the stocks that you bought or to get your certificates in that you sold. The settlement date is when that trade actually becomes official, or the date that the money or securities are actually due to the transfer agent. So as of May 28th of this year, it changed from 2 days to 1 day. To 1 day. So now it's a much shorter time frame. For most people, nothing will change. Most brokerage firms actually require cash or at least a margin account prior to accepting orders. And most people don't hold physical stock certificates anymore. Most stock certificates are held in what's called street name. So, they just show up in your brokerage account. They're already there. You don't have to actually physically get anything to a transfer agent in the form of money or certificates anymore.
And Shana, kind of a follow-up here. Does this affect the transactions for mutual funds, ETFs, bonds, CDs, and money market funds just like it might for stocks?
Yep. It's all of the securities there.
Yeah.
Actually, for treasuries, it was already T plus 1.
Nice. Okay. Awesome. Shana, there's a couple more follow-ups I had here. It's looking like we might not have time to get to these before the ag here. But yeah, it's a good question there from Tyler for sure.
Yep. Okay. So we can pick up on that in the next segment, and hopefully we'll get a phone call too.
Sounds good.
So if you've got a question, maybe about T plus 1 or the SEC, go ahead and give us a call. 610-363-1110. Right now, we're going to hear from Craig Halgert with the Ag Report. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be back with the final stretch of financial issues. So we hope that you will stick with us and get your call queued up. 610-363-1110. Here comes Craig right now.
This is Craig Howgard with your Financial Issues Ag update for May 31st. We saw corn futures down for the third straight session yesterday, with U.S. corn planting progressing at a normal pace and U.S. drought monitors showing less and less problem spots. The path of least resistance currently seems to be to the downside. At the close, July corn was 6.5 cents lower at $4.48 3/4. Soybeans were lower, led by a sell-off in soybean meal. Now, the negativity that was generated by fears that the Chinese demand has been overstated. China's stuttering economy has reduced demand for pork, which in turn has hurt the demand for soybeans and soybean meal. That's left local soybean meal prices in China hovering around a 3-year low, and that, of course, could result in decreased demand for U.S. beans. July beans ended the day 4.25 cents lower at $12.09 3/4. Wheat was driven sharply lower by a combination of rain being forecast for southern Russia and eastern Ukraine over the next 10 days, and profit-taking ahead of month end. At the close, Minneapolis July wheat was a dime lower at $7.42. Kansas City dropped by 10.25 cents to close at $7.09.5. And Chicago was 11.75 cents lower at $6.81 per bushel. Cotton futures had an abysmal session as they closed sharply lower. The closing bell, July futures were down 334 points at 77.76. Livestock futures were mixed. We had August live cattle 42.5 cents lower, $179.77 per hundredweight. August feeder cattle dropped by $1.17.5 7.5 cents. They settled at $259, 7.5 cents per hundred. In August, lean hog futures were 35 cents better, closing out the session at $96.25 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures spent the session trading in an extremely tight trading range. At the closing bell, June futures that advanced by 4 points to close at 1936. This has been Craig Haugard with your Financial Issues Egg update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Throughout the month of May, FISM is partnering with Preborn to fund the light by providing 100 ultrasound machines to pro-life centers around the country. Now, how can you contribute? Well, for as little as $28, you can provide an ultrasound scan to an abortion-minded woman in crisis. And when that woman hears the heartbeat of her baby, she will choose life. Get this, 90% of the time. It's remarkable. And guess what? With the help of a donor match, for every 200 scans donated, that's for a net value of $5,600, Preborn Ministries will be gifted an ultrasound machine to place at a clinic in need. Each machine has the potential to impact hundreds of thousands of mothers' choices. Preborn also offers additional support to mothers in need and presents the gospel to every mother who comes into their clinics, knowing that salvation is the greatest gift that can be given to a mother and her child. So go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM.
Fear and uncertainty can cause us to hold things tightly and rely on ourselves. But during uncertain times, as believers in Christ, we are called to surrender fully to our sovereign God. The call to surrender to Jesus is one step in our growth in holiness. And it doesn't just mean you give over a few things. It means He gets it all, including our finances, our investments. Learn a biblically responsible investment strategy proven over 25 years. Keep the money God has entrusted to you out of companies that participate in things that God detests. Fully surrender. Become a Financial Issues Partner today. Learn more by going to financialissues.org/join. That's financialissues.org/join.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, everyone. Hey, Shana, we got a great comment that came in. Actually, Dave from Texas was calling us earlier. He didn't want to come on the air, but he did want to share with us. He's given a good substantial amount to the Preborn campaign. So, Dave, thank you so much for that, brother.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you.
He's actually giving from a stock that Dan told him to buy years ago. So
awesome.
We're talking about that law of reaping and sowing, Shana, earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, what an example of faithfulness early on, and now we're seeing a blessing, not only financial blessing for Dave, but also for the ministry of Preborn and Financial Issues.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
You honor God.
Yeah.
You buy a company that's recommended, that's not using your shareholder dollars to violate your conscience, and then your result is increase.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. He also wanted to share with you, Shana, that Dan would be so proud of what you're doing. He thinks you're doing a great job, and I agree with him. Dave, thank you for those comments, man. That's awesome.
Thank you for those kind words, Dave. It is a joy to get to do this. I look back and remember when I first stumbled across the show on an AFR station accidentally one day during lunch, and how my heart was just convicted whenever I heard Dan talk about biblically responsible investing. And that set me on the journey to where I am today.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
Couldn't be more grateful.
Pretty awesome. Shana, we got a question from John on the website asking about the Form 8.3. What is the Form 8.3? What does it mean?
I'm guessing he's probably talking about in reference to a company, and I don't know the call number, but a materials company that has been on our buy list, not currently or not recently, but for a long time. They are entertaining a takeover bid by another company, and so it's just part of the procedures that companies have to go through, public companies have to go through whenever they're considering doing something like merging or being taken over or something like that. And so it just is a filing registration of a person with interest representing 1% or more of the outstanding stock. So just a regulatory thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Shana, we did get another question in here. 2 energy stocks. So one of them actually is buying the other one out. I don't know if maybe we want to save that question for next week, though. It just came in on the website. This is from Judith in Texas. I can read it for you, or we can save it for next week if you'd like.
Is it the one... Gosh, I can't without...
Yeah, so it's E22 is buying out E44.
Okay.
And so she's just wondering, should some profit be taken from E44 just in case the deal doesn't go through? Will the stock share price of E44 most likely continue to increase prior to the deal closing? I assume that she has both stocks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would keep, if it's the one that I'm thinking of, I would keep the one that is being acquired. It's been on our buy list very recently. So I would keep that one. I would just wait and see if the deal does indeed close, because I suspect that if you own both of them already, you're going to be way overweighted in those positions, because the acquiring company has been on our buy list in the past too, and it has done really well. So you may have to look at paring back some of those positions if indeed that deal does go through.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, there's other people interested in the company.
Sure. Yeah, that's good stuff. Shana, let's jump back to Tyler's question from Texas that we were asking earlier about the SEC change that started earlier this week. Just to follow up here from that, what does the SEC actually do?
Well, the SEC is the Securities and Exchange Commission. They oversee the securities exchanges, so the markets, securities brokers and dealers, investment advisors, and mutual funds. So they're kind of the overseer of all of that in an effort to promote fair dealing. They regulate the disclosure of important market information, and they're kind of a consumer watchdog. One of their purposes is to prevent fraud, so the defrauding of individual investors. They are an independent federal agency, and they're headed by a bipartisan 5-member commission composed of a chairman, who is currently Gary Gensler, and 4 commissioners who are appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate.
And Shana, how much influence does this governing body have over our finances, particularly over our investment dollars?
Well, they have a good bit. I mean, if you think about the recent, or the very recent and ongoing debate, I guess, about crypto, the SEC recently sort of legitimized crypto, or at least Bitcoin, in allowing the Bitcoin ETFs to go through, and more likely than not, they're going to approve the Ethereum Bitcoin creation in just a few months. So you now have, even though it's bipartisan and not political and supposed to be all of that stuff, a good bit of this, I think, has been fueled by the recent comments from former President Trump about becoming the Bitcoin president, or the crypto president. And the response from Biden on the flip side of that, followed by a coincidentally timed statement from the SEC about allowing that Ethereum ETF to form.
And all this is going on while one party is jailing the other one, as we mentioned earlier in the show. Crazy stuff, Shana. Yeah.
It is.
We have some other questions we can get to. I know we haven't looked at the markets yet. I don't know if we want to take a look at those here.
Okay, we can. I usually give my recap in the beginning. So for the week, all 3 market indices were on track to end in negative territory until, of course, the inflation data came out just this morning, sort of reversing that. But it is likely, unless we see a huge reversal, that the markets will still end in negative territory. As of the close yesterday for the week, the Dow was down almost 3.7%, the S&P down 1.75%, and the NASDAQ down almost 1.4%. Taking a look at where we have open, the pre-markets were positive. Right after that inflation read came out, they became even more positive, and now they're just sort of hovering around the flat line. So I don't know what has actually transpired since, if there's any more data out, or just, the market's realizing, well, okay, maybe the PCE data didn't show any really negative surprises, like inflation has re-accelerated again, but, hey, it's still, prices are still 20% more than where they were. Consumers are pushing back, and valuations are at all-time highs in the market. Some markets have hit all-time highs, but, I have a hard time believing that the markets aren't going to continue its upward push, because there's $6 trillion in cash sitting on the sidelines looking for a home to go. Yes, it's earning, 4.5% or 5% in money markets right now, but, is that going to be good enough? Is that going to be good enough to keep up with purchasing power? I just don't know that that's the case, and that money will likely want to flow into stocks.
Yep. Shana, speaking of stocks, we got a question just came in on the website. Charles is asking, I know we aren't supposed to buy from the broad list, but if the cost drops below our initial cost point, is it a good deal to buy a stock? Now, Charles, I'm not sure if you're talking about a stock that you already own or one that you haven't bought yet. But Shana, would you want to take a stab at Charles' question there?
Yeah, so, it's been a long-standing rule. If you have a position that is down, that you bought when it was on the buy list, and you want to average down into it, for most cases, as long as, now you're on your own to kind of see why the stock is dropped down. If it's not on our buy list, we don't think it's necessarily a good entry point for new money. But if you've checked out the news, if you have a good understanding of why it's dropped down and you want to average down, now I would say to really effectively average down, it needs to be about 20% below where you purchase it to make it a really good averaging down move. Otherwise, I would kind of stick to whatever's on the buy list.
Awesome.
And it's not a terrible thing to be a little bit overweighted in cash right now. Like I said, we are at all-time highs in the market. There's a lot of evidence that says the market can go higher, but, if history serves as a guide, and, a lot of times it does, corrections or even crashes could be on the way to get prices back down. Now, there are still pockets of opportunity, and you probably noticed that our buy list is a good bit smaller and continuing to get smaller as we're struggling to find really great entry points for a lot of good companies. So don't force it. If there's nothing on the buy list that in a sector that you need to fill, just hold off. It's okay. It's okay to be a little bit over in your cash positions right now.
Awesome. Maybe can squeeze one in here, Shana, for the end of the day. Todd is saying, would you confirm that when a sell recommendation for a stock is issued for technical or fundamental reasons, this means a long-term investment would likely not be a beneficial stock to the portfolio? What do you think, Shana? Todd's question.
Yeah. So
yep.
if we're telling you to sell, we don't give a lot of explanation. We don't write up a report when we give a sell order. We just tell you in general if it's for biblically responsible reasons or if it's not, and it's you take it for face value. If it's a soft sell, we'll tell you if we want to leave it up to you. But typically, if it is a soft sell, we don't even issue a sell alert on it. All right, folks, I hear the music. That means that we got to go today. So we hope that you enjoyed the program. We hope that you are motivated to defund darkness by becoming a biblically responsible investor, and that you're a joyful and generous donor funding the light. Do your best on this last day of our preborn campaign. Go to financialissues.org and check out more information about the ministry and our campaign.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.